All right, everybody, welcome to the first ever inaugural episode of Real McCoy Radio. Very excited to be here. I have one of my best friends, Jeff Dwelle, here with me today.
Greg, it is great to be here. It's an honor. It really is. It's an honor for me to be the first person on Real McCoy Radio.
Yeah, we're
I'm very
kicking
excited.
This thing off.
Yes, sir.
Our topic today, six-figure personal training, something you know a thing or two about.
I've done a little bit of work. I'll say that. That's true. There are a lot of numbers involved. That may have been one of them, yes.
So a little context and background for you guys. Jeff and I have been friends for about 10 years now.
Yeah, a little bit over 10 years. Yep.
Yeah. I was aware of you, prior to opening Metroflex Gym. I used to see you at the shows. I was working some odd jobs at NPC shows on the come up. And then, we met probably 2009.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, what better person to bring some value to personal trainers out there than someone that's been doing it for how many years now?
Well, it was 20 years back in December, so about 20 and a half years. I started in December of 1998, and I have been personal training or some version of such for a little bit over 20 years, so a long time in the industry.
Yeah, so you have learned a few things.
I have.
A few things not to do, a few things to do.
Yep.
And you've also seen a lot of evolution in the industry.
A ton.
So
I've seen a ton, absolutely.
Yeah, I think we'll dive right into it. So I hope that you guys, all you personal trainers out there looking to improve your business, get a lot out of this today. And Jeff's a very wise person to tell you about it.
Thank you.
So first question, tell us about your current business model and how that's kind of evolved over time.
Sure. The idea that I had, originally I was a personal trainer with the idea, much like yourself, I came into the industry because I was really interested in bodybuilding. I was interested in the physique world, physique sports, and I wanted to be a competitor. And so I had thought, well, I would like to involve myself in all aspects of the sport, the business. And so I was like, what better way to do that than to be in the gym and be around the gym and help people and evolve myself. And so that was sort of the original idea behind my personal training sort of foray into the business. I didn't know that it was something that I would do forever or wanted to do forever, but that's how it began. And so it was kind of multi-tiered. One, I had this sort of list of things that I wanted to accomplish for myself personally with bodybuilding and working out and modeling and all that stuff. And then two, I also wanted to be able to sort of create a platform as a trainer. At the time, like most, I came in and was just hungry to work and new and didn't have much experience, had a certification, and that was pretty much it. And so I started probably like anybody else who was ambitious, and I just sat at the front desk and I met people and I scheduled sessions, and that was the beginning. That was the rough beginning.
Not much has changed. I mean, that's still...
Well, unfortunately for many people, that model hasn't changed a lot, and that's a difficult model to make a real career out of.
Sure. And
sort of what I can kind of guide myself through where we are today. And so over the 20 years, what I found is one, when you start talking about personal training, you're talking about some very specific caps on your ability to work and make a living. Time intensive. It's time intensive. You have
only so many hours in the day.
Only so many hours, and then there is some rate cap. There's some amount of money that you can make in each hour, and that's going to be capped. And not that can't ebb and flow, and you can't continue to push that up. But nonetheless, if you start looking at a model for personal trainers, you're fighting those two pieces, and they limit your ability to evolve in your business. And so, over time, I had decided that if I were going to make this a business and not just a job, that I would need to add other lines of business or other services. And so really kind of coincident with us having our first child in 2006, I really kind of started the idea of, hey man, I'm a personal trainer. I offer these services. I've done these things. What are some other services or offerings that I might be able to put out there that might have some value? And I sort of just threw stuff against the wall, and some of it stuck and a lot of it did not. But I had been training a bunch of different kinds of people. I had been in bodybuilding. And so the first thing I did was to say, well, what might be a specialty or a niche or some things that I might know about that other people don't know about? And why is it that, one, I haven't assigned any value to it? Because Trainers don't, and that's a
Sure.
that's a
Sure.
real big issue for trainers, is they don't understand what value they may have, how to interpret and how to sell it. That's a huge issue. And it was for me, and I said, look, I have a skill set, or I believe I have a skill set. If I can sell it as such, then I have a skill set. And so I decided to, I had some posing classes or whatever. I had done some sort of on the napkin consulting for competitors, and wrote diets and plans like everyone had done.
Was there any kind of posing class in existence at this time?
No. I mean, I had one.
Okay.
I started a class. It's kind of, I don't know if I would call it a class, but this is how it started. I had a coach, as many of us did a million years ago, Marvin Meinstein, in Fort Worth, and it was kind of this famous sort of like back house behind his house, and they called it the sweat box, and it was just old school hardcore, and people would go pose there, and I did so too, and I learned a lot there, and that was a really big part of my own personal development. And then back in 2001, I had a girlfriend who did fitness. She had a friend who was getting into fitness, who ended up being Trish Warren. And so my first 2 posing class members were just these girls. We'd go up to the gym on Sunday, and we would pose. They would do their fitness routines, practice their routines, and then we would do some posing. And so then a 3rd person showed up, then a 4th person showed up, and then that kind of just like evolved grassroots kind of out of just, hey, people would get together, we do a little posing, work on your stuff on Sunday, whatever. And then in 2005, I had said, this is something that I should market as, turn into a business. So that was one of the first things I did. The other thing I did, which was kind of scary for these 2 girls, but they said yes, I can remember their names still, Krista Gibson and Angie Platten. They came to me in 2005 and they said, hey, I'd like to do a show. And I was like, okay. I went home and I said, I'm going to come up with an outline with a set of services, and I'm going to apply a price to it. And I just made it up. Like I've made up sort of the idea of how I would provide the services, and then I just shot in the dark on how much it should cost.
Okay.
And they said yes.
How much was it?
I think it was $1,000. I charged them $1,000, and it was like a 20-week prep, and I had laid out all of these services they would get, so it was kind of a package.
Okay.
They had been with another trainer. They left that trainer. And I was sure they would say no, because no one was doing it, and it was a pretty significant outlay also. So I was, but I was like, look, I need to try some things. I got a baby. I got another one coming. I got to make some money. And they said yes. And then we had, which was just good, we just had beneficial outcomes. We did well. They both did well. They were talented. They did well. They hung in there, and they did it for several years. And what that allowed me to do was use those experiences, the services, the setup, and start being able to move it in a direction that it did make sense and create some momentum, because I'd had a couple of people who'd done it. They'd been successful doing it. And so I was able to start selling that idea. And what had happened in bodybuilding, what was going on early on was, and still at some level is, although not as much, it's really wide open. And the service is wide open. And the service providers aren't always very reliable or consistent. And so what I had really found or felt like doing was creating some consistency in, hey, I have a class every Saturday at 2 or whatever, or hey, we provide these services, and creating sort of that place such that people knew if they needed a service, whatever that might be, that we offer it, and then it was professional and consistent. And I wanted to establish that over time, such that gave me some credibility in an industry that was just really wide open.
Yeah, I mean, was super innovative. I mean, right now, probably people watching this, depending on when they entered the industry, right now, contest prep is like a job. People, that are going, new personal trainers strive to be, I'm going to be a contest prep coach. That's kind of an outlined position in the industry. It wasn't so when you started.
It was not. I'll say a couple of things. At the time, sort of the guru or a person who was doing it and sort of did it for everyone was Chad Nichols. Okay. So Chad Nichols was like the king of the world. A little bit before that time, which is kind of ironic because now he's very popular again, was Chris Aceto. Okay. So Chris Aceto he really came out early. He was doing that some. It was really niche-y, really. Yep. Chad made it a little bit less niche-y. Maybe I felt that way because he was servicing people here, Ronnie Coleman. Okay. He had found Ronnie. Chad kind of got here. It's kind of a cool story, but he got here because Kim Krzyzewski had been invited to guest pose at the Ronnie for several years. That's how he met Ronnie. And every year Ronnie would bring down Flex Wheeler and King Kamali and Chris Cormier and all those guys, and Chad was working with them. And so that's how all those kind of guys got together. And then that's how I became familiar with Chad myself. And so he really was kind of like, he was kind of the king in that really high-end niche world. But otherwise, no one else would even
There was no local contest
envision,
prep coach.
No, you
at
wouldn't
this
even
point.
envision thinking about it. I mean,
Yeah.
most
And-
guys would be like the guru in the gym, and
even
you go up to him.
Even in my, I've been doing this now 10, 11 years, and when I kind of showed up, I mean, you were the contest prep coach of Dallas. Like, if you wanted to do a contest, you'd talk to Jeff.
Yeah.
because that's
Yes,
there. And now it's obviously very.
it's
There's
very dynamic.
most people that
now.
have competed do some kind of coaching.
Yeah, somehow. Yes,
Yeah.
they do. That's true. Yeah, I wanted to be able to have a place where, or provide a set of services that anyone in the industry could get something out of. That was my goal. My goal was like, if someone walks in my door, I do not want them to be able to leave without me offering them something that would be worthwhile to them.
Yeah.
And that's why I ended up, and people kind of make fun of me for it, but this is why I ended up learning how to teach bikini, and it's how I learned how to teach figure. It was really kind of out of necessity. I mean,
Yeah.
I wanted to be a turnkey service provider.
Here's a bikini girl. She needs to learn this stuff. I have a price for it.
Yeah.
I better learn it.
Yeah. If I can convince them that they could learn something from me, make them comfortable, and then get them to give it a try, my hope would be that it would be a value to them, and that I could not only provide them with that service, that they might trust me to provide them with other services.
So if we were to apply this to somebody maybe that's been in the business and wants to grow or is getting into the business, how do you fit the contest prep coaching model and personal training together? Where does that come together in your goal to be a six-figure trainer?
So here's sort of what ours looks like, because I did the numbers after you gave the questions. Here's the reality of personal training. And this is where I think trainers kind of get spoiled or complain. But let's say there's a rate. There's some rate in the high end of the rate. Let's say if you're a trainer at Equinox, and those guys don't get all the money. But let's say it's $150, $175. And then let's say in a small gym, suburban Dallas gym, let's say it's $30. So there's a rate range. $30 an hour for a lot of people is still really good money. I mean, if you're piling that up, that's not bad money. We train anywhere between $75 to $120 an hour. So when you're thinking of just outlining your week and accruing revenue, you cannot go wrong with piling up 20, 25, 30, 35 hours of $50, $75, $100 clients. I mean, that's a real good base of business right there.
Yeah.
A real good base of consistent business.
If you offered no other services,
That's excellent
A
money.
lot of hours at that level, that rate is going to add up to a pretty good amount.
It's
at
right,
the end of the
right
year.
there alone. That's your base of business. Now, that's complicated because, and you know this, you have to sell the business, you have the service of business, you have to retain the business, and that's a whole model in place. But nonetheless, the efficiency out of those hours is really high. It's really high. It's high efficiency. So that's the basis of our business. That's 80% of our business today is what I would consider floor hours.
Okay.
What is that made up of? One-on-one personal training, group personal training, posing classes, group classes, all those things. But that is
80% of your week is working people out.
That's right. 80% of the income
Okay.
from the week is working people out.
Gotcha.
20% comes from the consulting revenue, and that can be, most of it is program management. For the significant number of them is for people who are either doing shows, in between shows, or they're on some kind of a project, like a fitness project. Like I'm in transformation, I'm having a wedding, those things. And so you have some consulting income that comes in on top of that. There's some management that goes with that. And then you're hoping the local ones that you can sell into the other services. But that makes up 20% of what I do today in terms of revenue. So you got this 80% chunk in which we are working for it and working at a pretty good rate, established a good rate. And then we have this consulting fee such that you're adding ancillary services, ideas, programs, all kinds of different things. Again, we try to kind of make it turnkey. So if someone came and said, hey, I want a workout program, or I need a rehab program for whatever, I've hurt myself, that we can either refer them to someone and get a fee for it, or we can write it ourselves.
So no matter what somebody comes at, you've figured out ways to monetize that.
I felt like if I couldn't monetize it, if I could refer them to someone who could help them, then it at least kept my relationship positive, and there was a possibility that I could monetize the relationship in the future.
Yeah,
for sure.
And I mean, in an altruistic way, I mean, you've just found a way to help literally everyone that comes.
That's what I think. The first thing, this is the thing about personal. I'm in the service industry, as are you. Like, that's just straight service industry. So, do I have a skill set related to fitness? I do. But the reality is, the real skill set, and I think this is what's tough to sell. And look, and you know this, like, there is some intrinsic part where you're interested in people, you can relate to people, you can hear what they're saying, you can come up with solutions. That isn't intrinsic to everyone, but you can work on it and get better at it. But the real value that someone can offer, or the real way to be valuable, is to sit down with someone, and we do this with everyone who comes in, and just let them talk about what it is that they would like to do. Yeah. And then your job is to say, these are the things that I think you can do, and this is the way that I think we could do it, and I want to provide a solution for you. I hear what you're saying, and this is how I think we can get to where you're going. And that's really the value right there. So that's the value play, and then you are creating pieces within that structure for each individual that makes sense on their sort of path to their success.
Yeah. And what would you say, like, I totally agree, and I tell trainers this a lot. I mean, you can know everything there is to know about changing someone's body and drive people away like crazy if you don't know how to interact and do that process that you're talking about. But on the same token, you know, some people focus very little on what happens on the floor. You have to, if you want to succeed, you have to be able to deliver results.
Yeah, you have two kinds of trainers, really, right? So you have one who's really, really educated and has terrible people skills, or is maybe a little arrogant about the fact they're really educated. And then you have those who were athletes, really good looking, very charismatic, all those things, and they just get by on those things. You know, so there are sort of like these polar opposites on the training spectrum. When you can find someone who has all of those pieces, that is that they're charismatic, good looking, fun, have a great personality, and on top of that, they're willing to invest themselves in the technical pieces of making someone better, then that's someone who's very valuable. I'm not saying that's not easy, by the way, but that's but that's the key to longevity in a business where people really, and as you know this, I would say struggle, drift, get burned out, get frustrated, because I don't know that they understand all of the pieces that can make them valuable. Because, to be honest, and I've talked to a lot of people about this, if you're a personal trainer, most likely you have been trained at some level in a specific skill set, which would be related to the gym or related to physical therapy or whatever. But have you been trained as a person who is a marketer or a business person or an organized person or a salesperson? Probably not. No.
Probably not even close.
Not even
I know,
close.
And you know, I wrote, not to call out the ISSA here, but that's my favorite certifying body for just training knowledge. But I got their marketing piece, and I wrote them about this because it had Yellow Pages ads as your number one lead generation source.
Wow. It's a little outdated.
Yeah.
A little outdated on that one. Yeah.
You know, so it's not part of, you know, I'm sure some certifying bodies have evolved in that way, but the sales training and marketing training is not in your average trainer's wheelhouse. No,
in no way. I kind of I did this consulting gig for a while for trainers, and no one would pay me for it, but it was a really good idea. It really was. It's just, the problem is trainers are so paycheck to paycheck, or they're so week to week, they're so afraid to spend money that they won't invest in themselves. But I had this idea, and I was like, look, I'm going to advertise such that trainers can come in, we can break down their business, and we can build it back up, you know? And so I have kind of these three pieces. And so the first piece is the front end, and that is, you know, who am I? And what's my target niche, and how the heck am I going to get them in here just to talk to them? Like that's a whole skill set to itself, especially when you're out there on your own. Now, has social media changed that and helped? It has, but God, social media is so overwhelming that you really need to know how to navigate it, and to be able to stand out today on social media is so tough. And then to get people to spend money versus just get likes or comments is really hard. But nonetheless, that's got to be the front end of your skill set, because if you're not selling anything, you can talk about how great you are and you can manage whatever you want, but there's no money there. The second part, which is difficult, and this is something I accumulated over time, and so did you, is you need to have a good skill set. I mean, if it reaches a specific niche, that's fine, but you better have a skill set that really is valuable, that you've learned, that you've applied, that you've modified.
I think that's the only way to get your business to make that second generation jump. I mean, you can help a group of people, but if they didn't achieve anything, they're not going to tell their friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, and referrals, I don't know about you, but I think for most trainers, the number one source of new business
It definitely
is referrals from your existing clients. So if you don't change them, it's that second generation is probably not going to show up.
No, you're back to one. You're just selling all the time. And then 3, and this one is probably the most difficult for most people because they don't have the background in it, administering your business.
Yeah.
I mean, that can be an overwhelming killer. It really can, because it can get on top of you and get you in a lot of trouble.
And that's one thing I wanted to bring up, and I think that's been a key to your success in this now crowded contest prep coach market. Is it doesn't necessarily, the people that know how to prep competitors don't necessarily, aren't the most organized, or they're not necessarily in an office all day with spreadsheets and tracking all these clients. It's kind of a text message to text message thing.
It is.
And so that's, I think, where somebody that could really take a step ahead is if you have that administrative side conquered. And that's something you've been able to obviously set yourself apart, is being able to just keep up with providing programs on time.
Yeah, I mean,
and communicating.
I think back in the day, I said, look, like and I learned this from working with some people. I actually learned it from working with Hani Rambod, because I asked him a lot of questions when I did. But I asked him, I was like, well, what makes you better than everyone else? So the first thing he told me was just pure attentiveness. Like, I'm attentive to my clients. I listen. I pay attention. And I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. So what I learned over the years is that there's no magic way to administer your business that is going to just blow you out in front of everyone else. What will blow you out in front of everyone else is having a consistent process, with accountability and communication, such that when there are kinks in the road or problems, that you've come up with contingencies or ways to manage those problems forward. And are you going to fix all of them? No. Are you going to win every time? No, you're not. Does it increase the likelihood significantly that you will deal with most of them? Yes. And that's what pushes anyone who's successful forward. We're all going to run into stuff that's messed up. We're all going to make mistakes. I still make a ton of them. But if it is that I built a system such that it mitigates them as much as possible, and I have solutions, at least the opportunity to give clients solutions, then my likelihood of it moving forward in a positive way is a ton higher over time with a bunch of people. And that's really what, because look, you know this, like contest prep is so tough. I can go into the emotional part of it, because the reality is I have no control over what happens. We can go through all this and the processes and blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the day, it's just wheels off. Like, you go to the show, and Friday night till Saturday night, it's just wheels off, right?
Yeah.
And so you can take your numbers and statistics and data and you can just throw them out the window for the most part. But the reality is that if you've planned and created a structure and a system in which the person had a good experience as much as they could, and then you put them in a position to be as successful as they can be, then within that context of the contest prep world, your likelihood of moving forward with them, and I think this is again where contest prep trainers get in trouble, your likelihood of moving forward with them, because a win for me is, I tell people this, what kind of retention did I get out of the show?
Yeah.
I had 10 people in the show. Do I still have 10 people on Monday, or do I have 5?
Yeah.
Well, and maybe I want some of them to go. But in the real world, let's say I don't want some of them to go. Well, I'd like to have 10 coming out of the show, because the reality is I need longevity.
Or 12.
Yeah, exactly. I need longevity in the relationships, because I need to continue to make money, and I need consistency in those relationships. So if it is that I've provided services or support such that we're rolling forward with a new plan or a contingency coming out, then that's a win for a coach. And you know what happens to a lot of coaches, and I get this still all the time. I have a guy right now who's really good, whose coach just dumped him after the show, and there's no follow-up, there's no post-show program, there's no nothing. They just leave him. And look, I get it, man. I do. I work 7 days a week. I have for over 15 years. Is it a pain? It's a pain. Do you get tired? Do you get worn out on it? You do. But it's your professional responsibility to have some kind of protocol in place such that you're moving forward. Even if it is that you say, hey, I don't think this works out anymore, I want to go in a different direction, it's fine. But my longevity probably has been because I try to handle those situations in the most professional way. So maybe the person doesn't want to work with me anymore, but I've had some who come back 2 or 3 or 4 years later and say, hey man, I know I can rely on this, I can rely on you, and that has a lot of value to me.
Yeah. Yeah, because you may lose clients to a trainer that's client one. That's, a common scenario. Oh, their client looked better than me, so maybe I should go there.
Yeah.
But I think in this industry, 9 out of 10 times, they don't get a better service than you provided, likely. So that then they end up, likely coming back, or your chances of them coming back are much higher.
I think at least
they're only going to usually refer clients to
Yes.
you, which keeps your business growing.
That's the key in sort of our small little world, even still small little world.
But I think what you're saying has application. We're obviously talking about your business and you're rooted in bodybuilding, but there's a lot of trainers that train people for events, and it's the same principle. I mean, maybe 20% of their revenue comes from program design, 80% of it's on the floor, and then that they need to prepare people for these certain things, and that whole follow-up thing that you're talking about, and all that applies to any kind of niche.
I have templates for basically everything. So if someone were to come in and say, hey, I'd like to get ready for my wedding, I have a transformation template. So I can plug in numbers and I can plug in ideas. I already have the design in place. And so it's not like I'm recreating the wheel anymore. Like, I don't need to want to recreate the wheel, because I want to make the processes as efficient as possible. I want them to be appropriate. But I have templates for all of these different sort of things that I may offer, so that when someone comes in and I'll follow up, it is that I can sort of plug into the template and design the idea and price it pretty quickly and move it out and get them in play as fast as I can, and explain the parameters on both my side. How do I communicate? How do they communicate?
Expectations.
And what they can expect. Exactly.
So maybe tell a trainer getting started this, like you've been doing this 20 years, you've evolved to a point where you've had templates and all this, kind of back end structure. Right. Should they start day one with having some templates in place, or how do you advise that person that maybe isn't that organized yet? If
it is that someone wants to make this a business, I think the first thing you do is, and I think most of us need to continue to do this, but you need to just decide who you are. Like, I think the best thing you can always do is just write down, like, I'm Greg McCoy. These are the things I'm great at. I'm charismatic, I'm organized, I'm outgoing, I like people, have a niche of doing these different things. And then you have this list. And so the list gives you this idea of, okay, this is who I am. This is who I am. What is it that now I can take this and tell people about me that they may want to come and see me for a service? And so identifying who you are is key. And then making it valuable is key. And that's, again, that's really hard for people. This is who I am. This is who I am. This is what's valuable about who I am. Now, this is how I monetize that. This is my list of services. And that's just a great start. That's a great start. So then you've decided, these are the things I want to offer. And you know what? For someone who's starting out, to be honest, I would probably be offering 2 or 3 things. I mean, not a lot of things, because you've got to get in and learn. And you've got to take the bumps in the service offerings. And I would just design a couple of them. And then you practice. Someone's going to come in. You hope someone comes in. And then you practice your interviewing skills. You practice your interaction. You practice selling. You practice all of these things, and such that you are building your own model. And by doing that, hopefully, what you should be doing is recording information, and then you're evolving into your model. And that's what in any business, when you're like an entrepreneur or you're doing your own thing, that's how you should do it. Identify who I am. What is it that I can offer people, and let's price it. Let's price it, and let's just put it out in the world and see what happens. Aggressively put it in the world.
One thing that I wanted to touch on is you're obviously making all of these decisions because it's your business. So shed some light on independent contractor versus employed trainer. And, there's a lot of people making those kinds of decisions.
Yeah. I mean, obviously there are 2 distinctive models. I started as an in-house or employed trainer many years ago with the idea, not a nice idea, but with the idea that I'd accumulate enough people and then I'd turn them into independent, which most people do that, so I had done that. But the idea is this, and again, this is where I sort of, this will take me to another conversation. I'll try to make it short as I can. If you were to look at the income statement for the big box gyms, the first line of revenue, which is the largest line of revenue, is straight up memberships. 2 is personal training. So 2 is personal training across the board for all these guys. So this is kind of the story I tell people. What did gyms say when they said, I have this space, I have these members in here, what's a great way for me to generate passive income? I'm going to offer this service. Well, how am I going to do that? I'm going to train in some people or just bring in some people, okay? And I'm going to set them up such that what we basically do is we sell a bunch of training. We'll put them at a level of service that we think accommodates the clients, and then we're going to charge a ton of money. And then we're going to let the trainer get paid some amount of that, which is a pretty small amount. But what do? Well, we take care of the trainer. We schedule their sessions for them. We give them clients. We make them comfortable. We give them their paycheck. We take out the taxes, blah, blah, blah. And so that is a model. It's a great model for a gym. Like the margins on that model for a gym are outrageous.
Yep.
The margins on that model for a trainer, with caveat, for a trainer who's ambitious, are not good and not long lasting. For a trainer who is comfortable and sort of in a place where they don't want to move forward, hey, it can be great to hang out on the couch and just service your sessions. And when you lose your 9, you go get another 9, whatever. But that system for trainers, you can learn a lot in the system, obviously, by training people and being in the system and learning a lot about management and administration. But the reality is, if you want to be in control of your own destiny, then you would hope to be in a gym or in a facility or have a facility where you are in charge of your own decisions. And you are, for instance, I have an independent training system, so I pay a rent. I pay a flat fee for training, or a flat fee to be there.
Sure.
And then the business decisions on top of that are mine. So what happens is, well, you have this fixed cost every month that goes out, and then you decide, well, I've got to cover this fixed cost, and then and everything on top of it is revenue. And so is that a little bit of a scary model for a trainer? I can tell you, and you can attest to this too, it absolutely is, because even if you have a trainer who comes in with 15 or 20 people, for instance, like you were mentioning, someone who's coming to Hidden Gym, immediately you say, well, okay, I'm transitioning people over. There could be some attrition just based on a bunch of different things, drive time, blah, 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 whatever. And so I need to be planning for attrition right now. Like, I may lose 3 out of 15. I need to be able to take that in on top. And I need to be 6 months ahead with another 3 or 6 or whatever. Oh, and also I need to make sure that those who need new services, different services, I listen to what they're saying. I need to keep that stable amount of income in the boat too. Sure. Oh, and then on top of that, 3, I just need to make sure all my stuff is in order. So when taxes need to get paid, they get paid, and, and everybody gets taken care of and all that stuff. And so you got all those pieces together. And so I think really when you're sort of building a system, independent is the only way you're going to be. If we're talking 6-figure training, I haven't done the numbers on in-house, but you'd have to
I don't know if it's
a bunch
possible.
of sessions.
I've never heard of it.
But on independent training, it's really not outside of the spectrum to get to that number. I mean, again, you need to be a horse and you need to be a worker, but it's not outside of the spectrum. Just if you just model the numbers, you can get there. Sure. If you learn how to do that, you carve out your niche, figure out who you are, and then you have a crazy good referral base. That is, I'm really good at what I do. People really like me, and they want to tell other people about me.
Yeah, creating raving fans that double, triple your client base.
Right.
To the point where you're so in demand that you have to increase your rates, or you've got waiting lists, and those are real things that happen when you create that demand. Absolutely.
Yep. Or adding other trainers to work for you, create more income for yourself. Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's one thing to talk about. You have I don't know if you call her an employee or not. You have
I would say an assistant, and she's contracted out. And so she fits a niche for a couple things. She works on the social media, but she also has a skill set that would be similar to mine, but can apply to a different clientele, a similar clientele, but with different boundaries. We have people who want a female coach, they want a female opposing coach, a female trainer, and so it adds some diversity. Whereas I can't fit with everyone. It creates some synergy.
So it's an extension.
You're
able to create an extension of yourself.
Absolutely.
In a great position for her as well.
Absolutely. Yes.
In doing that. So that's an interesting part of your model that we hadn't talked about. Back to the facility just for a second, because I get this question a lot, or have trainers coming to me from big box gyms that want to make the jump. What do you look for in an independent facility? What are you looking for?
I think for the average person's business, it needs to be clean. It needs to be nice. I think when you're talking about people, this includes myself, moving from one gym to another, it needs to feel friendly in some way. It needs to feel like a place where I could see myself working out, feeling comfortable, and being happy in the environment. So does the staff need to be nice? Staff needs to be nice. Does it need to be somewhat clean? It needs to be somewhat clean. Does it need to sort of not overwhelm that specific client? It does. And so I think what you're really looking for is some level of professionalism. And I know look, some people just want to go with the trainer and they don't care. Mm-hmm. Like some people do. Sure. But if you're building a diverse clientele, which there's no way you make it without some diversity in your clientele, I think it needs to be a place where people generally say, I feel good about being here for all of those reasons.
And what are you looking for on the business side of that gym? Because there's a few ways. You got into it a little bit, but there's a few ways the gym can slice it for you. What are you looking for?
We'll see. For me, what I always felt like was if I can get a fixed rate, then there's some risk in that. There's not risk in that to me anymore, but there would have been a long time ago. Mm-hmm. But I always felt like I'd rather go with a fixed rate, and that incentivizes me to once I get past the fixed rate, everything is mine.
Sure.
Like it's all mine. So I was always kind of sort of my mindset was I want to run really hard, and I want to be incentivized to run hard. Some gyms will take a piece of all of your sessions.
Percentage or a dollar amount per session.
Right. Yep. Some will do that. And so I think it really, look, in today's world, there are not a lot of independent gyms out there that offer anyway. So if you find one that's nice, that's a win.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, that's a win. If you can find one that accommodates you and is close by and accommodates your clientele, that's a big win right there. But for me, I was just like, look, like I know the nut I have to cover every month. Once I get there, everything is upside for me.
So if we were to boil this down, what is the number one piece of advice you can give someone if they're looking to become a six-figure trainer?
Number one piece of advice? Okay, you want my real number one piece of advice?
Not real.
All right, here we go.
You can give me the real and the fake just for my entertainment.
Here's the real. Clean yourself up. Be professional. Like legit. Be fucking professional. That's number one. I mean, this is a business where I think because people are in a gym, they think the level of professionalism would not apply as it would in other environments. So that right off the bat.
Especially if you compare it to hourly rates. Like, what is the wage that we earn? What's another profession that earns that wage? I mean, you're already getting into the CPA accountant.
That's why it's a strange kind of dichotomy. Yeah. Because and I understand it. Like, I understand when you're a trainer in a gym and Equinox charges $125 and you get 35 and you're like, oh my gosh, they charge $125 and I'm getting nothing, and it creates sort of this resentful environment. And you say, well, I should be charging $125. But to your point, not many people are charging $125 who spent a lot of years in school and spent a lot of money and a lot of years in school. But I think the most important part is from the beginning is establishing yourself as being professional. That is the way you look, the way you speak, the way you interact with people. I did and still do, and I know you do too. I've done a lot of research on body language, eye contact, charisma, speaking, listening. I try to stay up to date on current events. If I have a client who has a specific job, I go look up what their job is.
It's your ability to conversate with them between sets.
Well, that's what you spend most of your time doing, right? So, I mean, if that's where the majority of your time...
If it's an awkward hour, they might not want to come back.
That's not going to go well for either of you. So I do feel like I need to provide a place where this person feels like they can come and slide in and we can talk about their day, and then I can apply my skill set at the same time. And so I think that's the most important part, is just to be unbelievably professional in your presentation, and then research.
And that's how you dress.
It's how you dress. Absolutely.
It's how you talk.
Yep.
It's being on time.
Yep.
I mean, that's usually, I think, it's the simple stuff that sets the good ones apart.
Absolutely.
They're not late. They look good.
Yep.
What about, we didn't even touch on this, in shape, out of shape trainers.
You know what? And that's, I can go on that story. And I think you could probably relate to this too. And here's what's really tough. If you are in the gym grinding away, I see, and I've seen it for many years, it is so hard for you to stay invested in your own stuff. Yeah. It's so hard. Like, I think people get into it and they say, I love fitness, and they start doing it. They're like, man, I hate fitness because it's not mine anymore. It's not mine anymore. I've given so much of myself up. I don't want to be here right now. I just want to rest. And so that, I mean, that happens to a lot of people. Is it your responsibility to create that sort of piece of who you are, it absolutely is. But you're talking about managing, and this is what's tough again when you're out on your own, managing a lot of things. Hey, I need to manage burnout. Hey, I need to manage how much time I'm in the gym. Hey, I need to set aside time for myself to go work out. Hey, I need to plan some meals as best I can. So maybe you don't look like you're on stage all the time, but you do need to be able to sell yourself as someone who is a fitness professional and looks like a fitness professional.
Yeah, it's a common thing. I mean, what's the old saying? I mean, a shoemaker with no shoes, or a broke banker, or whatever. Like you need to be in shape.
Yes,
absolutely. If you're going to be a six-figure trainer, more than likely.
Unless you're just really like a genius and really, and you're unbelievably charismatic. I mean, I've seen some people who can break the rules.
Yeah, they can pull it off.
But for the most part, yeah, I agree with that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Be professional. Number one piece of advice.
Be professional. And then the other one, too, is just figure out who you are.
Yeah.
Like, figure out who you are. Write down who you are. Figure out what those services are. And then put a price on them and at least go try it on people.
Yeah.
And then you can figure out where those price points should be.
Get the ratings back.
Yeah.
And try it again.
Absolutely. You cannot lose by doing that.
Yeah.
You cannot.
Well, Jeff, it was a pleasure to have you today.
It's great to be here, Greg.
I think there's a ton of topics that I would like to pick your brain about that I think people would find very valuable.
Yes, I would love to talk.
Certainly, you'll be a repeat guest.
Great.
But we'll end it here for today. If you guys, if there's questions for Jeff Dwelle about becoming a six-figure trainer, where should they?
You could go to my website, dwelleathletics.com, and you could email me on my website. That would be great. You can find me on Instagram too, Dwelle Athletics. And hit me up. I'll be happy to answer any questions. And I have to say, it's an honor for me to be here, Greg. And I have to tell you, it's been really cool to watch you grow. I've known you since you were a kid. I mean, really, since you were just a kid. I think you were still at Oklahoma State when I met you. Actually, opened Metroflex Plano. My brother was the first member of your gym.
The first member. Which
is really cool. And to watch you evolve as a business person and as a man, it's been really cool to see you do that. And so it's been fun. I mean, I feel like grandpops. But it's been awesome. And the things that you're doing within the industry are quality and they're long lasting. And I tell people, I say, Greg McCoy is the only person that I know in this industry that no one has anything bad to say about. That's actually, I mean, I can tell you that's actually true. So I think that's kind of the highest compliment. That's the highest compliment I can give you.
I think so.
And and I'm really appreciative of you sharing this with me.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
That means a lot. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.